Right now, as you're watching this video, Jensen Huang is sitting in his NVIDIA office, probably wondering if he'll still be running his own company by Christmas. And based on what we've uncovered, the answer might shock you. There are 7 critical warning signs that suggest the Trump administration is planning unprecedented intervention in NVIDIA's management. And some of these signs are so obvious that even Wall Street analysts are calling it inevitable. Let me paint you a picture of what's really happening behind closed doors at the White House, because this isn't just about trade wars or export controls. This is about the systematic takeover of America's most valuable company, and it's happening faster than anyone imagined. The first major red flag is something most people don't even know exists. Trump has already established unprecedented revenue control over NVIDIA through a deal that has no historical precedent in peacetime America. Back in August 2025, Jensen Huang flew to Mar-a-Lago for what he thought was a routine meeting about China chip sales. What happened next changed everything. Trump personally negotiated a deal requiring NVIDIA to pay the U.S. government 15% of all revenues from H20 chip sales to China. 15% of every dollar. Trump's own words reveal the coercive nature of this arrangement. He said, and I quote, "I said, listen, I want 20% if I'm going to approve this for you, for the country." Huang negotiated it down to 15%. Think about that for a second. The President of the United States is personally negotiating revenue-sharing deals with private companies like he's their business partner. Cornell law professor Sarah Krebs noted that it's hard to identify any historical precedent for this sort of arrangement. The financial impact is staggering, with CFRA research estimating NVIDIA could earn $35 billion annually from China chip sales. The government could collect $5 billion yearly from this arrangement alone. But here's where it gets really interesting. Trump has already indicated interest in expanding this model, suggesting 30 to 50% revenue sharing for NVIDIA's advanced Blackwell chips currently under negotiation. Warning sign number 2 is direct executive pressure tactics that mirror Trump's previous corporate interventions. In August 2025, Trump demanded Intel CEO Lip-Bu Tan resign immediately over investments in Chinese companies. This wasn't a suggestion. This was a direct order from the President of the United States to a private company CEO. The precedents are extensive and terrifying. Trump forced TikTok's divestment through executive order, banned WeChat transactions, and placed Huawei on export blacklists while personally pressuring foreign governments to reject Chinese technology. His quote reveals the mindset perfectly. "We convinced many countries, and I did this myself for the most part, not to use Huawei." This is a man who sees private companies as extensions of government policy. Jensen Huang has already experienced this pressure directly. Trump initially considered breaking up NVIDIA before their Mar-a-Lago meeting. The reversal of the H20 chip ban after this dinner shows how personal relationships with Trump can override stated national security policies, creating a dangerous precedent where government policy becomes subject to individual executive whims. The third warning sign is bipartisan congressional pressure that creates political inevitability for deeper intervention. Both Democratic and Republican lawmakers are building the foundation for government control through investigations and public criticism. The House Select Committee on China has opened a formal investigation into NVIDIA's Asia sales, demanding customer lists and disclosure of all Chinese entity agreements. Senator Elizabeth Warren warned, contrary to NVIDIA's promise to the president, the company appears poised to help build more cutting-edge data centers in China, not in the United States. Republican Chairman John Molinar echoed these concerns, stating, "We should not set a precedent that incentivizes the government to grant licenses to sell China technology that will enhance its AI capabilities." This rare bipartisan consensus creates political cover for executive action. 6 Democratic senators, including Chuck Schumer and Elizabeth Warren, formally wrote to Trump opposing the current NVIDIA deal, calling it cause for serious alarm that the administration would negotiate away America's competitive edge for what amounts to a commission on sales to America's main competitor. Warning sign number 4 might be the most damning of all because it reveals that legal mechanisms for management control are readily available and have been used before. The Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States has expanded powers under the 2018 Foreign Investment Risk Review Modernization Act to review investments and impose ongoing oversight requirements on companies deemed national security risks. The Defense Production Act grants sweeping authority to prioritize government contracts, direct production capacity, and review foreign transactions. This isn't theoretical. Biden invoked the Defense Production Act in 2023, requiring AI system developers to share safety test results, and Trump could easily expand this to operational oversight of NVIDIA's AI development. Most dramatically, the International Emergency Economic Powers Act has been invoked 65 of 71 times since 1976 for national emergencies, granting presidents authority to control financial transactions and corporate operations. Trump successfully used this act against TikTok and WeChat, establishing precedent for technology company intervention. The fifth warning sign is NVIDIA's China vulnerabilities that provide perfect national security justification for government takeover. China represents 17% of NVIDIA's total revenue. That's $10.3 billion in fiscal 2024. The company has already absorbed a $4.5 billion inventory charge for H20 chips and lost $2.5 billion in first quarter 2025 revenue due to export restrictions. China's retaliatory antitrust investigation into NVIDIA's 2020 Mellanox acquisition demonstrates how international pressures can justify domestic intervention. Beijing has warned Chinese companies against purchasing U.S. chips, citing security concerns, while Chinese state media has specifically targeted NVIDIA's H20 chips as security risks. NVIDIA's 80 to 95% market share in AI chips creates both strategic value and regulatory vulnerability. The company's near monopoly through its CUDA software ecosystem generates switching costs that lock in customers, providing antitrust justification for intervention. The Department of Justice has already launched a formal antitrust investigation, issuing subpoenas for allegedly anti-competitive practices. Warning sign number 6 involves Defense Department relationships that enable direct equity intervention models. NVIDIA has extensive defense relationships with over $40 million in known defense contracts, including a $20 million MITRE Corporation supercomputer serving Pentagon and intelligence agencies, plus a $20 million DARPA research contract for military surveillance systems. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick has already revealed the Pentagon is thinking about taking equity stakes in defense contractors, noting Lockheed Martin, which makes most of its revenue from federal contracts, is basically an arm of the U.S. government. This model could easily extend to NVIDIA, given its critical AI infrastructure role for national security applications. The seventh and final warning sign is financial volatility that creates crisis intervention opportunities. NVIDIA's $600 billion single-day market cap loss in January 2025 was the largest in U.S. stock market history, demonstrating the company's systemic importance and market fragility. This volatility, combined with export control financial impacts, creates the economic crisis conditions that have historically justified government corporate interventions. The 2008 financial crisis saw government take 60% controlling stakes in General Motors and conservatorship control of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, establishing clear templates for crisis-driven corporate control. NVIDIA's projected $8 billion second quarter 2025 loss from H20 export restrictions, combined with Chinese antitrust fines that could reach $1 billion, creates multiple financial pressure points. These conditions mirror the distressed circumstances that preceded previous government interventions in companies deemed too big to fail. So where does this leave us? The evidence reveals a clear escalation pattern from financial control to potential management intervention. Trump has already established unprecedented revenue-sharing mechanisms, demonstrated willingness to pressure individual executives, and secured bipartisan political support for deeper action against NVIDIA's China business. The legal authorities exist, the national security justifications are documented, and the financial pressure points are established. Most significantly, the precedent of treating critical technology companies as quasi-government entities has been set through the revenue-sharing arrangement that treats NVIDIA as subject to direct presidential negotiation over business operations. The transformation of America's leading AI company from private corporation to government-controlled entity appears not just possible, but already underway. The only question remaining is how far the Trump administration will push this intervention model and whether Jensen Huang will still be running his own company when this is all over.